Hi, everyone. My name's Jay Sherman, and I'm proud to introduce Mr. John Schaub. He is one of my favorite educators over the years. I've known John, going back to 2008 or 9, and we just wanted to give John here a few minutes to share with us his seminar coming up. So take it away, John.
Well, thank you, Jay. It's an interesting year. I've been doing this for more than 40 years now, and this year I think will probably be one of the more interesting of all 40. The presidential election and inflation and interest rates moving around, real estate market being hot, hot, hot most places, but cooling off. We found things cooling off here. I'm going to be in the Inland Empire speaking, and one reason we chose that is the prices of the houses there are the same as they are in my town. I could buy a house here in town for about $500,000. It rents for about $3,500 a month, and those numbers are very similar to what we find out there. Numbers are different wherever you go. And one time I owned property in 10 states, and I thought that was a good idea because I was diversified and had all these different markets working for me. But I learned that the management challenges of owning things far away was pretty dramatic. And I had partners, who would share in the profits, but even doing that, which made a lot of sense to me, still, I didn't have the control that I had in my town. So years ago, I switched and sold my properties that were out of town and moved to my town, which is Sarasota, Florida, town of about less than 500,000 people to 400,000 people or so. And our market's been steady. Actually, we've had some real ups and downs during the last downturn. Before COVID, about 12 years ago, our property prices dropped in half. We had a $300,000 house went to 140. That was a shock to all of us. We didn't see that coming. But fortunately, I owned a lot of property that I've owned for a long time, and my tenants stayed. So one thing I want to share with you today is this is a business that relies on tenants, and tenants are your great asset. If you're going to be in the business of holding property for long periods of time, it's important that you have this focus of trying to acquire properties that will attract long-term tenants and then taking care of those tenants. So today, you're never bulletproof, but I feel pretty confident that we're in good shape for anything that's going to happen because most of my tenants have been with me 5 years or more, and they like the houses they're in, and the rents are not above the market. They're probably a little below the market, but they're good houses and good neighborhoods. And unless they lose their jobs or something dramatic happens in their personal life, they're going to stay right where they are. And we found that happen during the downturn. Even though prices dropped in half, only 10% of our tenants left. We lost about 10% of them, and another 10% we had to drop the rents a little bit to keep them. But 80% of our tenants, who are all long-term tenants, stayed in place and paid the rent on time. And that gave me the opportunity to go out and buy more property in a market that had tons of opportunity. And I think we'll see something like that happen again. I don't think prices are going to drop that dramatically, but certainly there's cycles in this business. And when interest rates jump up like they did, I've noticed around here, a lot of the people who are building houses to sell to folks who had to finance them are having trouble selling those houses now. We've had a lot of houses sit on the market for, 180 days, and you didn't see that a couple of years ago. The average time on the market might have been a week or two, but things have definitely changed. So there's going to be some opportunity. I encourage people to buy property that's the highest quality that they can afford. And that's a very important statement. You have to be able to afford it. And I don't want you going out and buying expensive property that you can't afford because you won't keep it, you'll lose it. But if you can buy the best property you can afford, then you'll have the better tenants. And by having better tenants, you'll have less management work. And that's the part that drives most people out of this business. They don't either work, they don't learn to manage, or they rent to the wrong people, and those people just drive them crazy. And after a while, they say, this is too much work for me. And, just go get in the stock market where nobody calls me at night. My management system's a little bit different than most. We don't take calls at night. We don't take calls at all. If a tenant wants to contact me, they have to email me. And then when we respond, then we respond quickly because we have people who can respond quickly. So if somebody has a plumbing problem or air conditioning problem, we could probably get a fix in a day for them. But I'm not going to talk to them on the phone. I don't need an emotional tenant calling me on the phone, all excited about their air conditioning working. Just tell me it's not working. I'll get a guy out there as soon as we can, and we'll get a fix. And by responding that way and responding quickly, you're a good landlord, and people appreciate that. By the corporate landlords, the people that manage a lot of properties for people, typically are not as responsive as we are. And we pick up tenants from those people on a regular basis who say, we don't want to rent from the big corporations anymore. We want to rent from a real person who we can talk to. And they can talk to me when they move into the house, but after they're in there, then we do everything by email. So it's a little different system than most people use. Focus is real important in this business. And if you're getting started in this business, you know, I can remember days I got started, I would buy almost anything that I could afford. I mean, I would buy a duplex or a house or an apartment building or a motel or a wine and cheese shop or a restaurant, and I owned all of those properties. The problem is the management for all those properties is different. And I had a full-time bookkeeper and a secretary and a handyman, and you know, it was driving them crazy because the policies for managing those properties is different. You know, in a motel, people need a response right now. People will wait longer at some other things. And one reason I got out of the commercial buildings and the motels is that the tenants demanded instant response when they had a problem. You know, if you're a dentist and your plumbing doesn't work, or, you know, your roof is leaking, you want to fix it, and you want to fix right now, not next week or not even tomorrow. You want to fix now, you have patients in there and you're losing money. So if you're in a commercial business, and there's a lot of other reasons not to be in a commercial business, I think. So if you're in that business, you have to be on call, or somebody has to be on call all the time. In my business, you don't have to be. My daughter lived in Australia for 7 years. We're in Australia 4 times a year, generally for a month at a time. And I could manage my properties from Australia as well as I could manage it from my town. So it's a different approach and to both what we buy and how we manage it, and specifically how we finance it. And I'll be talking a lot about that in the class. This class I'm teaching for the Inland Empire, in the Inland Empire, June the 22nd and 23rd, is a 2-day class, and it's a comprehensive class on how to buy, how to select, how to finance, and how to manage single-family house investments. And I've been teaching people how to do this for a long time. I've written a book called Building Wealth One House at a Time, and I encourage people to read that book before they come to the class, because the book outlines a lot of the things we'll talk about in class, and I'll be able to go into a lot more detail in the class, and many more advanced strategies in the class. And of course, I'll be able to answer your questions in the class. So I look forward to being there, and I'll be laying out the strategies we're going to use here for the next year or two as things continue to change. I see more opportunities. I am both a lender and an investor in real estate. So our lending policies will change pretty dramatically as the market changes here. We haven't been making a lot of loans lately because we feel like we're close to the top of the market and interest rates are still low. It's a different perspective on interest rates if you're new in this business. You know, if you just got into it a couple of years ago, you think that 2 and 3 and 4% was kind of a normal interest rate. And I always felt that it was kind of an abnormally low, just like, you know, 10 or 12 or 14% is abnormally high. And the government sometimes manipulates these interest rates, and you have to be aware that these things are short term. You know, if rates went to 16% tomorrow, that wouldn't be the new normal. That would be a very short term event. And if they go to 3%, that's not going to be the normal again. It's going to be a short term thing. And they tend to get to about where they are today on a regular basis. And you can make money with today's interest rates. So we're going to talk about financing properties with today's interest rates, today's market, and really get specific about the cash flow you need to make it work and how to make cash flow work. I bought every one of my properties without going to a bank. I've never gone to a bank for a loan to buy a piece of real estate. And that's a very important thing to understand. You can do it without going to the bank. In fact, you can't make your best deals by borrowing from the bank, because the bank will quit lending if the market really gets soft. You know, if people can't sell things and there's a lot of foreclosures, the banks will first stop lending to investors, but then they pretty much shut down all their lending. Right now, we're seeing this in the commercial side. Commercial loans are getting very difficult to get. Land loans are getting very difficult to get because the builders and the people who own big office buildings many times have cash flow issues right now. So, you know, if a builder has 20 empty houses and they haven't sold, they've got a cash flow issue. If somebody who owns an office building is half empty, they have a significant cash flow issue. And those loans that renew pretty short term, you know, commercial loans and builder loans often are either 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, sometimes 5 years. They're short term loans. And if that loan comes to renew, And the people who owe the money, the builders or the investors who owe the money, can't qualify for a new loan, those properties go into foreclosure. So I'm not predicting a big downfall here, but I am predicting a lot of opportunity. So I hope you can join me in June. And I'm going to stop talking just for a second. Jay may have a couple of questions he wants me to address, but I look forward to seeing all of you who can't come there. And Jay, I'll turn it over to you and see if you have a question that inspired.
Great. Thank you very much, John. The first question I have for you is the importance of going to your local real estate club. Can you share a little bit about networking and where people live and the importance of being familiar with that?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You know, when I first started in this business, there were organizations, and I belonged to one. It was called an exchange organization, where we exchanged properties with each other, and we would get together and we talk about different things we could do in businesses. And not long after that, the clubs that we'd see today just got started back in their 70s, and they were inspired, I think, by one of my students wrote a book called Nothing Down. His name was Robert Allen. And Robert would go around the country putting together large conventions, and I spoke at a couple of them. And but from those conventions came a lot of individual real estate clubs, and you know, today we have offshoots of all those clubs and all a bunch of other clubs. But anyway, it's a great idea to belong to some kind of a club, and go to meetings where people who are doing the same thing that you are, and they may be a little bit ahead of you, can teach you and keep you from making mistakes. You know, there's business that happens at these meetings where people will lend each other money or sell property to each other, but there's also a lot of education that goes on where you can learn much more about this business, and you can see how much there is to learn. And I will tell you, the successful people that I know, the really successful people that I know, continue learning. That's the key. They don't stop learning. They don't stop trying new things. They get really, really good at what they do. And then they go out and make just a ton of money. And some of them will be in the class, so I hope you come.
Excellent. So if you are just getting started, here's your time to begin learning. And if you're somewhere along the way, don't stop learning. And you can continue learning at John's seminar, June 22nd and 23rd. And we will put that information up to you at the end of this interview. Thank you so much, John. Appreciate your time.
It's been my pleasure. I hope this helps some people.